Modi's mantras for Babus, now in a series of 19 commandments in the bureaucracy in the country, or to the bureaucracy in the country, the Prime Minister has said that officers need to take decisions exclusively based on the merits of the case. They must be courteous and responsive to the public. What's more, they need to maintain political neutrality. And it is this point that has the opposition raising questions. At least 12 officers from the Gujarat cadre, for example, are officers close to the Prime Minister, and they hold key assignments in central positions. And the Congress argues that the claim of wanting to ensure the political neutrality of the bureaucracy is in fact talk. It's eyewash. Joining us now to debate this, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Congress leader, Sambit Patra of the BJP. Also, I'm joined by Amitabh Pandey, a former bureaucrat. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Dr. Tharoor, you tweeted about this earlier on. Now, this is an exercise of the Prime Minister to increase transparency, to ensure that bureaucrats remain objective and that they aren't politically affiliated. Why do you believe that's eyewash?
Well, first of all, I have no problem with any of the 19 points in these commandments that Mr. Modi has issued. They're far better than the old 10 commandments that came out for bureaucrats within 10 days of his coming to office. So this is a good list. It's unexceptionable, but the fact is that every single one of these points was implicit in the conduct of the Indian civil services. They've simply been made explicit. These were all things that the IAS, the IFS, every Indian bureaucrat was supposed to do, to be courteous, to be efficient, to have no vested interests, to be politically neutral, and so on. What surprises me, however, is that this should be done by a government which has explicitly politicized the bureaucracy by actually dismissing, by transferring, in other words, private secretaries of NDA ministers who happen to be tainted by the fact of having served UPA ministers. Now, this is a shocking thing because in the past, officials have always served governments of any political dispensation. Their neutrality was assumed. Indeed, experience in serving one government was an asset in serving the next government. That was how all political parties had seen it. For the first time now, my own private secretary, for example, as an IPS officer, worked with me in HRD for a year and a half, was asked to be PS to the Minister of State for Home Affairs, where his expertise in police matters was actually far more relevant and far more useful to the government. But because he had been somehow tainted by association with me, he was packed off, as were other PSs, including the Home Minister's own PS. Now, this is politicization. It is the politicization that is coming from the top, from the government. You can't just tell civil servants they have to be politically neutral. If you tell them that if you work for a UPA government, then you're unfit to serve the NDA government. And tomorrow, we are supposed to say that you work for the NDA government, you're unfit to serve us. It makes no sense. Similarly, this is being done by a government which has actually moved to Delhi a number of officers who have demonstrated their loyalty to the present Prime Minister during his service as Chief Minister. So I'm afraid we have some fundamental doubts about the integrity of this decision. It's all very well to say one thing, but if your own actions go in the opposite direction, then saying it actually merely highlights your own hypocrisy.
Sambit, hypocrisy, I think that's the key word that he's saying.
No, I believe before I answer to what Shashi had to say, let me read out a very important piece of a letter which was written by Vallabhbhai Patel to Nehru. I mean, that's how I bring this whole thing into perspective. And Patel writes, I need hardly emphasize that an efficient, disciplined and contented civil services, assured of its perspective as a result of diligent and honest work, is a sine qua non of sound administration under a democratic regime. The civil services must be above party, and we should ensure that political considerations either in its recruitment or in its discipline and control are reduced to the minimum, if not eliminated altogether. I believe that political neutrality of the civil services, of bureaucracy, should be maintained as a fact which has been brought to platter. It's not just today.
The point is it's not been maintained.
It has, no. It has been maintained. It has been talked of, and Mr. Modi has rightfully brought it over here.
Then why did you transfer these officers?
No. I'm not going to buy any of those things that you are giving, because I believe if at all any officer was transferred from Gujarat cadre and brought to the centre.
No, but that's a separate point. The personal secretaries, for example, Shashi Tharoor's personal secretary.
Shashi Tharoor knows that as to why they were not allowed to be
an IPS officer.
No, people in the...
With an excellent record.
No. See,
why was he removed from the NDA?
No,
when he was from working with an NDA leader.
Mr. Tharoor knows of a circular which in fact the UPA had distributed to all the departments, claiming that there is a...
That was about serving 10 years.
No.
10 years. No one should serve more than 10 years.
10 years?
This is a man who has served a year and a half.
No, these are prerogatives. There must be something which should be left as a prerogative of the political affiliations, in the sense that they are not because of political affiliations, but because of what you may perceive as an impeccable record, but which may not be that. So it may be a personal...
No, but did you just say that some decisions need to be based on political affiliations?
No, not affiliations, on political opinion about your impeccability, in the sense that
so
one set of
political decision will decide the impeccability of a person.
Not at all. Impeccability is something which I believe, for Shashi Tharoor, that person may be extremely impeccable in his way of functioning, but he may not have been. If you ask about Kamala Beniwal today, probably they would say she was impeccable in the way of functioning, but we do not find she was impeccable. So it is best left for the people of this country and the judicial system.
Not a civil servant, she's a constitutional functionary.
No.
You're mixing up two irrelevant things.
I'm not mixing up anything, Mr. Tharoor. Only thing that I was trying to say is, if there were a set of administrators who were not continued into this present dispensation, it was only because of the fact that there is a rule that certain people cannot serve beyond a particular number of years, and Mr. Modi and the dispensation were following the rule. And as far as the amendment, they are correct.
That is not correct.
Yes,
people were transferred who had not served 10 years. Every single private secretary that served the UPA government was transferred out by the NDTV without exception.
Mr. Tharoor, does that mean that civil servants cannot be transferred? It is within the civil services rule that they are bound to have a transferring duty, so they can be transferred. But
not on these grounds. The circular, if you transfer them on purely political grounds, you are politicizing the civil service.
How do you know, Mr.
You're violating Vallabhbhai Patel's...
No, how do you know? How do you know that they were transferred because of political
competence?
Yes.
From your own circular. I know from your own circular.
Just a second.
Your own circular.
No, all I want to say is
your own circular said that those who have served the previous government.
All I want to say,
for any length of time.
One thing has to be extremely clear. For you, someone may be competent. He may or may not be competent according to the government, not because of political.
But competence was not the issue in the transfer order. So read the transfer order.
They can be transferred. Why not? They can be transferred. But ironically, I mean, what we have been seeing in the UPA dispensation, take the case of Ashok Khemka. We have seen as to what the upright officer had to undergo. Innumerable transfers. We have seen Durga Nagpal, and how the Sonia government, Sonia ji also did not come in the forefront to say that.
This is completely beyond the point.
This is not beyond the point. As to how
we were trying to make very
Mr.
clear
Tharoor,
to you
me and everyone knows one fact. It is because of political affiliations that the bureaucracy has been treated with different ways. It is because of affiliation of Mr. Khemka it's because Mr. Khemka's affiliation was not in the line that you wanted it to be. You saw to it.
But it's in the line that you want it to be.
No, we have not transferred anyone innumerably just because he is not falling in line. But there can be transfers.
Okay.
It does not mean he has to have 53 transfers in a year.
Amitabh Pandey, as a former bureaucrat yourself, why don't you just sort of spell it out, sir? I mean, any bureaucrat is bound to serve the government of the day, and therefore the entire issue of being independent can happen only to an extent. Beyond that, you have to work according to the political wishes of your master.
Well, you know, I think the issuing of these directives or repeating these homilies is a bit like telling everyone, saying you must brush your teeth every morning and you must have a shower, and you know, I don't think it makes much sense to issue these pious homilies. The fact is that what the politicians want, or what political parties want, and both sides, it's not a question of which political party. There's very little to distinguish one political party from another when it comes to the exercise of power. Both are in it for the exercise of power. Both are in it for rent-seeking pursuits. The Indian state is a vast rent-seeking enterprise. So, you know, and you require bureaucrats who are pliant. So it's pliability which is the problem, not a question of their political affiliation. Because the problem is one of cronyism, that each party looks for its cronies within the bureaucracy for the appropriate appointments. I mean, look at even this government. You have the shameful fact of the Home Secretary ringing up governors to say that they should resign. I mean, it's a complete abdication of a bureaucrat's independence and his responsibility and his ability to say that, sorry, this is a political function and I will not do it. So people want pliable bureaucrats, and for that they will choose the appropriate people who are their cronies. So you tend to get identified, you know, these people are cronies of the NDA, these people are cronies of UPA, these people are cronies of some other party. So it's
okay. One moment. I just wanted Sambit first to reply, and then across to you, Mr. Tharoor. Sambit first, then Mr. Tharoor. Go ahead.
No, I believe there's no material available in the public domain that the Home Secretary was giving calls to the governors to tell them to resign. I believe some governors may have made a noise.
Nudge, wink, wink. On the basis of phone calls received from bureaucrats.
See, wink, winks are not to be discussed on television channel as if they are gospels of truth. They are not gospels of truth. They are mere murmurs. So murmurs are not to be taken as gospels of truth. And secondly, a very important point, if the eminent bureaucrat says that these are homilies which we should not, rather it's almost like brushing the teeth and all, I have a very important point over here. Be liable to maintain confidentiality in the program of his official duties as required by any laws for the time being in force, particularly in regards to information disclosure of the work he is into. See, and I read this out in reference to Pulok Chatterjee. Innumerable references have been made of Pulok Chatterjee in books by people who are close to the UPA dispensation, that he used to carry files disclosing informations to Sonia ji. She had no affair to know the disclosures, but yet she was knowing it. So I believe it is at most important that we remind the bureaucrats that this is not the way the secretary should be functioning. So what is wrong in it?
No, but it happened then and it's happening now. That's the point, I think.
No, it's happening now. What? I mean, the Prime Minister, if Modi is seeing the file, he's supposed to see the file. He's the Prime Minister. But Sonia ji was not supposed to see the file. She was not the Prime Minister. No, but she was the shadow Prime Minister.
No, but let's just look at the numbers. Okay, P.K. Mishra, additional Principal Secretary to the PM. Rajiv Topno, Private Secretary to the PM. A.K. Sharma, Joint Secretary PMO. Sanjay Bhavskar, Key Aide of the PMO. Hiren Joshi, Social Media Expert PMO. Jagdish Thakkar, PRO. At the PMO, and I can go on and on and on. All of them are Gujarat cadre officers or have been affiliated with Gujarat in some way.
So Gujarat
so
is not out of India.
If somebody is to say that it is because of a political affiliation that these individuals have with the Prime Minister and his style of working that they were selected. This isn't a question of competence.
Vishnu, over here,
it's a question of political influence.
I agree with the way you have put the list out, but I would say it is not political affiliation. I would say affiliation towards competence. That's the reason as to, see, everyone in this country knows that Modi has a panache for hard work. He looks out for development. And the reason as to why he's Prime Minister today is the reason that he has developed and taken Gujarat to where he has taken it. And probably these are the group of people who must have helped him take Gujarat to the level. It's not that these people were helping
I'm not questioning the competence of these individuals.
It is definitely not that these people were helping BJP make its inroads into Gujarat. These people might have been helping Modi in the way Gujarat was structured.
In the UK, in Norway, are they incompetent? They were appointed by the last government.
All I wanted to say is, what is wrong if competent people of Gujarat are brought into the centre?
I'm just saying the competent people of Gujarat were brought in on the basis of being politically affiliated to the Prime Minister.
Not at all. Not politically affiliated. Affiliation might be by development. Affiliation might be by the kind of rigorous work they have put in to make Gujarat what Gujarat is.
Okay. Shashi Tharoor, last word to you. We need to wrap this up.
Vishnu, well, yeah, 3 or 4 very quick points because I've been holding my tongue while all these things have been said. First, I agree with Amitabh that these were very obvious instructions, and certainly this is the spirit in which bureaucracy has run in our country for the last 67 years, so nothing new about these commandments. Second, I disagree with due respect to Amitabh that politics and governance is all about rent seeking. There are honest politicians, there are honest bureaucrats, and I must say that it's unfortunate to imply that everyone who works in the system is only there to make something for themselves. There are many others who genuinely want to improve this country and try to serve this country fairly. Third, the politicization angle. It is completely preposterous to say that people were transferred, and he even used the word if, Mr. Patra, if they were transferred because of their competence, when the actual written circular issued by the NDA specifically says that all those who served the previous government for any length of time, so not the old 10-year rule of the UPA, any length of time would not be eligible to serve the new government. Now this is an explicit act of politicization, and that's why I call it hypocritical. Because when you're telling people not to politicize the bureaucracy, you don't start by politicizing them yourself as the government, and that's a major mistake. Finally, when it comes to comparisons to the Gujarat governor, when it comes to issues of the Gujarat officials who've been brought here, let's not mix up apples and oranges. A governor is a constitutional functionary and certainly has certain political aspects when appointed by the government of the day. A civil servant, on the other hand, serves every government. Okay. That was the point of the entire Vallabhbhai Patel quote that Mr. Sambit Patra read out. His own government has betrayed Vallabhbhai Patel today by refusing to appoint people who have served the UPA in the NDA. No government. We have, look, not only has the UPA retained officers who have served NDA ministers, but I myself encouraged my PS, who had only had 1.5 years with me, to go off and serve in a ministry where he had expertise to offer.
We are completely over on this discussion.
Helping the government.
Sambit has a 5-second point to make, and I need to move on because we are talking of something very important.
Put India first is my message to Mr. Patra.
1975 to 77, we all on the panel have heard of the committed bureaucracy and committed judiciary. You know, and we have, from the committed judiciary and committed bureaucracy, gradually we are moving towards neutrality. What is wrong in that?
Okay. Are we genuinely moving towards neutrality? I think that's a larger question.